You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the SDSU Football Podcast. I am your host, Andre Hagverdian, and joined, as always, by Paul Garrison. Today's episode, as we are now less than 3 weeks from the opening of Snapdragon Stadium and San Diego State's first game in its 100th season, is focused on Snapdragon Stadium itself. Paul and I had a chance to catch up with Adam Millar from Oak View Group, who is the general manager of Snapdragon Stadium. He is responsible for all things related to the stadium to make it operate for events. So whether it's a San Diego State football game, a San Diego Wave game, a Jimmy Buffett concert, or even private events, Adam is responsible for making sure all of those happen with no issues and a great fan experience. He provided us a lot of good information, some nuggets we had never heard before, and some details on items we had heard before but did not know too much about. So we definitely enjoyed talking to him, and I know you guys will as well. We want to welcome Adam Millar from the Oak View Group to the SDSU Football Podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, great, gentlemen. Happy to be here and happy to have a chance to talk to you and talk more about Snapdragon.
Yeah, right now you probably have the coolest job in San Diego, the general manager of Snapdragon Stadium. Can you tell us what a general manager for a stadium is responsible for and kind of your day-to-day duties right now?
Yeah, and I might argue it might be the most stressful job in San Diego too right now. But yeah. No, I'm very, very fortunate, very blessed. As you guys mentioned, I work for a company called Oak View Group, or OVG 360. I'm the general manager of the stadium. We operate the stadium on behalf of San Diego State. So my job is to oversee a number of different components in the stadium. I'll give you some examples. Booking, box office, cleaning, maintenance, operations, finance, field maintenance. So all of those elements that you think about when you're walking into a stadium or perhaps an arena, all of those elements. So my job is to oversee those elements.
And you're an alum of San Diego State, correct? Class of '87?
I am a proud Aztec and graduated, a few minutes ago in 1987.
So how did you call this in another interview your dream job? How did this opportunity come along for you?
So, well, it's interesting. So I've been fortunate to be in this particular business. So venue management business for 30 plus years. After I graduated from San Diego State, I did take a job. I was a business major in real estate, and I was kind of fired up about real estate. So I took a job selling mortgages, which ultimately was just misery for me. I was just like, this is not my thing. I'm not great at it. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So ultimately, I ended up coordinating with a guy that was teaching a sports marketing class that I was attending, and he was able to help me get an internship at the LA Coliseum and Sports Arena, which at that time was an amazing place to be. The Raiders were there, the Clippers were there, USC was there, every concert and show you can imagine was there. The general manager at that time and a couple other folks that worked at that location with me at that time, I was an intern, ultimately moved up to run what was a company called Spectra, which was acquired by Oak View Group. So a really 30-year relationship with folks in the company. I worked for a number of different competitors and a bunch of different venues up and down the coast of California. This opportunity came together as there was an RFP. San Diego State put out an RFP for this venue. The company, won the bid, and we'd been talking for a bit, and it just made a lot of sense. I mean, for me, in our business, the dream, and maybe in some cases, the nightmare is to open a new building, right? So that's what we all, or at least most of us, want to do at least once in our career. So to have the opportunity to do that, to come back to San Diego State to do that is a really cool thing. It's not just it's a great professional goal, but it's got that personal element to it as an Aztec. And I want to do a great job, but I got to tell you, I do not want to let down the Aztec Nation. I don't. So there's a lot of, I have a lot of personal capital in it as well.
So tell me a little bit more about that personal capital. I mean, San Diego State, the area. What does not just Snapdragon Stadium, but the entire buildup that's coming from that? What do you think it means as an alumni?
Look, I think it's huge I do think this is huge for alumni of San Diego State, but I also think this is huge for the entire community of San Diego. Yeah. It's been a minute since, the last new venue, an amazing venue, Petco Park 2004, right? So it's been a minute. There was a lot of, obviously, between that stadium opening and this stadium, there's a lot of heartache in San Diego with the Chargers and, that situation. And of course, them leaving the market and leaving their fans behind. So there was that. And I think there's a lot of chatter. Hey, San Diego, they're never going to get this done. We'll never get a building done in San Diego. And look what San Diego State has accomplished in 24 months. I mean, it's incredible. And so a lot of, I give a lot of credit to JD Wicker and Derek Grice and the San Diego State Athletic Department and the CSU system for, proving a lot of people wrong and building an unbelievable stadium. That it's exciting for San Diego State, but this is not just a venue for San Diego State. And when people come into this venue, they're going to understand that this is a uniquely San Diego venue. And we're going to do a lot of different things in here, including San Diego State, but a lot of other stuff in here. And I think there's going to be a lot of pride in the community, once they experience our venue.
So you described it as a blessing, also described it as a nightmare. I think the burning question for everybody is it going to be ready on time? And what are kind of those final things that need to be done in order for the venue to be ready to go on the 3rd?
Answer is yes. We are, definitely in a sprint here to the finish line, but we are basically done. I mean, what we're doing right now, what's happening in the stadium right now is a lot of interior finishes. You're just going to, if you were to walk through, you'd see a lot of, guys, men and women painting. You'd see a lot of some of the final elements that go into a stadium or a project like this: signage, wayfinding signage, artwork, the things that sort of logically would be the last thing that you would do, right? So that's what's happening in the stadium right now. Furniture is coming in, food and beverage product is coming in. So all of that stuff is coming into the building. But from a construction standpoint, it's done. Pretty incredible. Not just San Diego State, their construction crew, but also or their construction expertise, but the folks at Clark Construction and Gensler and all their subs. There's just a million of them. I mean, what they have done and what they have, again, what they've created for San Diego, it's incredible. And at the pace.
To open a stadium and to operate a stadium, you need staff, right?
Yep.
We've seen postings about, job fairs looking to fill a lot of positions. How's that coming along? And are there any top opportunities that are you're still looking to fill?
Yeah. So great question. And it's been interesting to staff a venue of this size sort of, post-COVID. I think, all of us understand coming out of COVID, how different the job market's been. And how different the job market has been in the service industry in particular, whether it's a venue or a hotel or restaurant. I mean, they're all challenged. So it hasn't been easy, but I will say that, the community has really stepped up. From a full-time standpoint, we're in very good shape. And I still got a couple of positions that I'm looking to fill, but for the most part, we're there. And on a part-time standpoint, we're also in pretty good shape. I mean, to your point, we're doing a couple of job fairs a week. We did, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9, I think in July, a few in June. I've got I've got one tomorrow, two next week. So we're going to continue to do it. We'll continue to do it through opening day and probably a little bit beyond opening day to make sure that we have, enough people to all the services that we provide. But so people are excited about it. And we've had a really, really good response. And when they walk in, they're just blown away. I mean, this thing is amazing.
Yeah, what we've seen and heard a lot of things about how this stadium is unique. What are some of the things that make it unique that fans may not have seen in other stadiums?
I think so. I think one of the interesting things is, well, first of all, it's an architecturally stunning building. It really, really is. The architect Gensler has done a number of other properties, Chase Center where the Warriors play, and a bunch of others. I mean, they've done an incredible job. It is really a stunning building to look at and walk around. And the finishes in all of our spaces are really incredible, really high end, not what you typically might expect in a college stadium. This is essentially a professional stadium, if you will, and in terms of how we operate and the types of events that will be in here and the premium experience and so forth. So all, that kind of stuff is really high end and really incredible. And the other thing is, and this was really JD Wicker's vision, it was, he wanted to create something that, was essentially 60% San Diego and 40% stadium. You may have heard that before, but it was really important to everybody as we went through this process, to make sure that not only we were building an incredible college stadium, but one that the community would embrace, that when you walk in, you're very, very comfortable. You're seeing some familiar names, you're going to see, Best Pizza in here and Hodad's and Crack Shack and Taco Stand and Cali Barbecue. And we're going to roll out shortly a number of very familiar beer brands, right? So, and all of that. So you're really going to feel like you're in a San Diego venue. And as you walk through the venue, you're going to feel different vibes, North Park vibe, a Logan Barrio vibe, all these different vibes as you walk through the building. So that was really important. Other stuff that I think is really unique in the stadium, the sightlines are unbelievable. And you talk to every building manager in the country and they're going to tell you, hey, our sightlines are amazing. There's no bad seat in the house, right? We all say that, but the funny thing is I can say it with confidence in this building. There is not a bad seat. You go to the upper deck, a corner, whatever. It's a very vertical building. It's an intimate building. The seats are great. So it's really an intimate setting for a stadium. Some other unique features, all the seats in the building have seat backs. In college stadiums, you see a lot of bleachers. There's not one bleacher seat in the stadium. All seat backs, 100%. And a bunch of just really unique spaces. There's a bunch of different ways to experience the building. The Piers, which is in the southwest corner, is, I guess what you would say our sort of signature architectural piece, designed by Gensler. It's 3 separate piers, to remind you of what you see when you enjoy our beaches in San Diego. It's cantilevers over the over the seating. There's nothing like it in college football or professional sports. There's nothing like it. It's incredible. All of these different things, it's super, super cool. And then, you got an Aztec football program really on the rise. Lots of cool stuff to see and great content and so forth.
No, it's exciting. But we've been hearing about these Easter eggs, and I know you can't give them away. But what's the idea behind, what is the thought process there for these Easter eggs?
Yes. I mean, it was so interesting to see. There's so much emotion in this community for the old stadium. I don't think the old stadium was the nicest stadium, at least in the later years, but fans' emotional connection to that stadium was really, really significant. Mm-hmm. And when I went to San Diego State, it was a long time ago. I'll be quite honest. I'm not sure I always made it into the stadium. I was a tailgater, right? Sometimes I made it in, sometimes I didn't, but right. It was always enjoyable. But when I first got this position, I was working on decommissioning the old stadium. And you might recall that we sold a bunch of equipment. We sold a lot of seats to fans and so forth. When we sold seats to the fans it was a unique process. We're in the kind of the throes of COVID. I can't exactly ship out a pair of seats to Paul or whoever. It's not something that I can just throw in a UPS box. So, we had set up basically drive-through pickups, COVID style and so forth. And we did that in the Northeast parking lot. The old stadium's in the backdrop. And I got to tell you, I just didn't expect it. But people, just tears, coming down their face and, Chargers. And I got, my husband proposed to me here, and maybe I got divorced here, whatever. All these, all these crazy emotions that that people had, and it really made me understand more, the role of the old stadium in the community. So it was really important to San Diego State. Well, first of all, they played there for 55 plus years, right? They were the original tenant and the last tenant. So it was important to honor that. That stadium and those emotions. So throughout the stadium, there's just, as you mentioned, Easter eggs. So there'll be things that remind people, things specifically, from that stadium. These are actual, elements, pieces from that stadium. So you'll walk around and you'll have a little bit of fun. And I think people will go, okay, that's really, really cool. Oh, hey, is that Jack and his dog? Yeah, that's Jack and his dog, so to give you a hint or two. So I think people will really appreciate that. They'll understand that, we built this fantastic new stadium, but we're not forgetting about, where we came from.
So in this Easter egg part, would that be like, we've had some questions from people about Don Coryell and being able to honor his legacy. Would be potentially, I know we won't give away too much, but how is he going to be incorporated into the stadium?
I don't know exactly for Don specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be honest with you guys, I there's a bunch of different elements in different places, and it's been a minute since I've been involved with that. But
gotcha.
But I do think that, for the most part, people will go, okay, that's good. Oh, look at that. Whoa. That's really
perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. So just in addition to SDSU football, there's going to be a lot of other events, right? The Wave will be playing 12 to 14 home games there a year, several one-time tournaments, and of course, concerts starting with Jimmy Buffett in October. How is planning for those events different than planning for an Aztec football game?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So, different events, very different planning. So, San Diego State events are, college football is a happening. It's sort of, controlled chaos. There's a lot going on at a football game, and it's a lot of fun, right? And then, concerts a completely different thing. For football, we're focused on the field being, a playing field, right? For a concert, we've got to cover that playing field. We've got to bring in a stage. We've got to bring in sound and lights. We're putting seating on the floor. We've got to figure out how to load that floor. Things we don't do at a football game, as an example. So a lot of different types of planning. And then there's, different planning for different sports. The field surface changes, obviously. The manner in which it's marked and painted and so forth changes. We have to allow ourselves, it's going to be a busy building. We're going to put a lot of stress on that turf, but we also have to be careful to manage that process to make sure that the surface for San Diego State and the surface for Wave and Legion and everybody else is fantastic, right? So it's really challenging. It's very challenging with natural grass, but we got a great surface, and we spent a lot of money, if you will, on our equipment. And we've got a great groundskeeper and his crew. So, we're in really good shape. But to answer your question, there's a lot of different types of planning that goes in for these events.
You mentioned Petco Park, obviously opening in 2004. Over the past decade, Petco has kind of transformed from just a baseball park to really an event center for the city. Is that something you've kind of taken and learned from, how that's transformed, that you can use at Snapdragon?
Yeah, look, they have done a great job. First of all, it's a fantastic stadium, right? It is really a special place to watch a ball game. And San Diego's very, fortunate to have it. And of course, big signings yesterday. I mean, they've made great commitment to their baseball product. And the putting out the best Padre team night after night or day after day. And to your point, they have really done a great job. They do a lot of special events down there. And we have a lot of respect for what they've done. Yes, this is designed, our Snapdragon Stadium is designed to do lots of different types of events, and not just on the field. We talked a minute ago about some of the events that we would do on the field, but we got a lot of club spaces. So, we might do, a club event for 100, 200 people. We might have multiple of those going on at the same time. We'll do convention offsites and things like that. So we've already got a number of private events booked into the building. Your question, they've provided a great model. They do a fabulous job. I have nothing but respect for them. And we're going to do some similar stuff. San Diego is such a great place. Everybody wants to come here. So there's plenty of business for them, plenty of business for us.
We've heard and we've seen a lot about how technology is going to be a big part of the stadium. How is technology going to be integrated to enhance the game day experience for fans?
So it's a pretty big role and an important approach for us in the stadium. First of all, we are a cashless venue, so electronic ticketing, electronic parking. You can pay with you can purchase your food and beverage with your mobile wallet. You can access your tickets electronically. You can shoot yours here to Paul in 2 seconds flat, right? So there's all of that in the building. We're going to roll out a stadium app, like a 360 app, if you will. So you'll be able to use that on game day or event day. You can access your tickets. You can access your parking pass. You can access directions around the stadium. You'll be able to see replays. In certain cases, you'll be able to buy food and beverage, maybe merch. You might have some contests, and you might see some very unique technology opportunities, down the line with our partner, our naming partner. So a lot of cool stuff there. And then there's a bunch of other technology in the building that is going to make the experience better for our fans. Our entry screening process, we're utilizing a product that is sort of loosely designed as an open gate system. So rather than going through, your typical magnetometer, which is a kind of an invasive procedure, number one, not super friendly, not super fast. We're using a newer technology called open gate, and essentially it looks for very specific items, but it doesn't necessarily make you empty all your pockets. The throughput is much, much faster. So you'll be able to get in the building faster, with just a less invasive approach, a friendlier approach, if you will. But we can still identify what we need to identify. So that's cool. We've got great POS at our merch and our food and beverage. I'm sure you've seen our scoreboards, Daktronics. We've got a couple of big scoreboards and video boards in the building. The resolution is unreal on these boards in the brightest of sun. I'm sure you remember, and this is not even a fair comparison, but if you went to the old stadium, you probably remember that, the quote video board and scoreboard. And there was like literally one guy in San Diego that knew how to repair it, so it's pretty crazy. We've got a lot of LED in the building. You're not going to see a lot of permanent signage. I mean, you'll see permanent signage at concession stands and things like that. You're not going to see a lot of permanent signage. We've got LEDs, so we can do a lot of changeable messaging, and a lot of that. We've got TVs everywhere. We've got a product called IPTV, which is essentially a product that ties all the TVs together and allows us to send different content to different places and to different screens simultaneously. In any given space, we've got the Aztec game on, maybe we've got a couple of other Mountain West Conference games, or maybe it's a big SEC game. We've got menu boards, we've got sponsor content. We've got a lot that you can see and that we can kind of shoot out, very quickly to all throughout the stadium. It wasn't that long ago that, at the end of a ball game, we'd send out 2 or 3 engineers with 2 or 3 remote controls, and they'd literally walk the building, right? and turn TVs off, so it's like crazy. So we don't have to do that stuff anymore. It's all tied together, into one integrated package. The Wi-Fi coming into the building, a lot of focus on that for fan experience. We got 10 gigs that burst up to 40 gigs, which, that's some robust stuff. So people are going to be able to get, access what they want to access. From a broadcast standpoint, this is really more from a TV standpoint, but it's a plug and play type situation. The truck just parks, plugs in. It's very, very simple for, our first game is CBS, national TV. They're super excited because they've already surveyed the building and they see how easy it's going to be for them to produce a game here. So a bunch of different things in the building, a lot of resources behind it, but great for fans, great for our event producers, great for TV and so forth.
Oh, that's terrific. I was reading about SoFi Stadium in preparation for this, and they were talking about the stadium and the technology. They have the ability to kind of collect game day data and then be able to take that data and then in future games be able to kind of change the fan experience, remove lines from certain places and stuff like that. Is that something that's a part of a new stadium that maybe the old stadium wouldn't have, because obviously it wasn't created to present that kind of data to the planners of where everything should be?
Yeah, that's a great point. And yes, to a certain extent, we can do that. We can identify areas that maybe are busier than others, and then work, try to move people in different ways. We can geofence through our app. We can maybe encourage them to go to a certain location. Maybe we offer them a discount to encourage them to go a certain direction or something like that. So there's lots of different things, to your point, that we can do to try to manage traffic and to your point, and improve the experience and get smarter game by game and event by event, if you will, to always improve that experience.
And then you were mentioning the app. Is this a new app, or is this the one that they just rolled out?
No. So San Diego State has an app, which
right.
And they've had an app for some time. But they just rolled out I want to say a newer version.
Right.
So that's the San Diego State Athletic app that services the 17, 18 teams on campus. But this is a stadium app. Obviously, we're integrated, with San Diego State. Of course, they own the building. But this is a separate Snapdragon Stadium app, standalone.
There was, I think, special season ticket members got notices, I believe, yesterday about a soft opening or a scrimmage on August 20th. What opportunities does that event present, kind of as a or dress rehearsal for September 3rd?
Yeah, look, it's a great opportunity, on the operator side, because we're going to be able to test a lot of elements before 9/3. So it's a bit of a gift, if you will, from an operational standpoint. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge, but it's going to give us a chance to figure out any problems that we have, before 9/3. You just don't open something this big with this, the amount of technology and the amount of people that are involved here and not have some issues. But this is a great opportunity for us. So, we'll be able to test our parking, and we'll scan parking tickets, and we'll scan tickets at the gate. We'll run people through our open gate system. We'll open up our concession stands and give them an opportunity to try the food and try our, and make sure our POS works, right? They'll have a chance to use our facilities and make sure all the toilets work, right? There's always the big flush, right? So this is an opportunity to do all that stuff and get a chance to see some of the premium areas and check out the building and get familiar where their seats are. We're all learning. So we're as the operator, we're getting to know the building, and fans need a chance to get to know the building, get to know where their seats are, get to know how best to come in the stadium. Am I going to take the trolley? Am I going to, what am I going to do? So it gives them an opportunity, gives all of us an opportunity to try things out, stress test, if you will, is probably the best way to say it. And hopefully, we'll find some problems, and it'll give us a chance to fix those before 9/3.
So last question, obviously, to get to 9/3, you mentioned the game's on CBS. It's also a 12:30 game in the daylight, not a night game under the lights. How different does preparing for a day game and the sun factor? How different is it than a night game?
I don't think honestly, I don't think it's dramatically different. I mean, obviously there's some things that you might want to, you got a night game, and that obviously brings in some different components, field lighting and things that we would test anyways, but some different elements there. Outside of that, not a huge difference. I mean, look, it's going to be warmer. We'll need more water. We'll need more sunscreen. Things like that. To take care of our fans. So that's different. Operationally, not a huge difference, other than some of the elements that obviously are differentiated between a day event and a night event.
That's going to do it. That's all the questions we have for you, Adam. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and get us a little bit more excited than we already are, and a little bit more educated about the stadium.
Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate it. We're super excited about this stadium, and we can't. I mean, honestly, I've been on this project for 2 years, and now, and I literally can't wait until we open those gates and that first kickoff. I don't even know. That's going to feel amazing. I can't even really. It's hard for me to really, I think, express how that's going to feel for me and for our staff. But we're excited, and I appreciate you guys taking the time with me today, and appreciate the chance to talk to your great audience and promote the stadium. They're going to love it. I'm just certain. San Diego's really going to wrap their hands, around Snapdragon Stadium. So thank you.
So Paul, Snapdragon Stadium. What did you think about all the cool things that Adam told us about?
I thought it was great. I mean, the hype is real, right? I mean, we're getting close. We're getting close to being able to get inside. Haven't been inside since the topping off ceremony. It looks a little bit different from the outside than it did with just the frame and no concrete. But, I think it's really an interesting contrast between the old stadium, even a contrast between Petco Park. He did point out that it was 2004 when the last stadium was built. And so I think it's pretty exciting to just hear, what has changed in the industry between that time and now, and how, San Diego State didn't cut any corners, and they're bringing in what he called a professional stadium at the collegiate level. That I think, the hope and what his belief is that San Diego is going to be very proud of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the hype is real for sure. Judging by the amount of views that your article about that interview got over the last couple days, I think it set our record for the most views from any of our articles. Is that accurate?
I think that, I think that is accurate. I think you said at one point it was the number one local news story
on Google News
for any topic. And so, I mean, and it's not just local news. I mean, that article has been talked about and on different places, throughout the country. And I think that it points to what CBS knew, and that is that Snapdragon is a really big deal. And they chose to make it their marquee game of, the opening week. It's for a reason, and it's because people want to see that stadium. They want to understand it. And then I think, you're looking at, everyone wants to judge resumes for conference expansion, and they're going to judge it by how Snapdragon is. But I mean, the article was very, very well received. Thank you for those of you who read it, and for those of you who shared it and all of that. But I think the details are really important. And as we've done throughout our coverage, I think there's so much more that could have gone in there that Adam shared. And so I thought the conversation was really important, and I hope everyone, got a chance to enjoy it.
I'm really looking forward to the technology aspect of the stadium. We usually when you think of technology, you're thinking about the Wi-Fi, the video board. I think the most interesting thing that Adam told us was about the, help me with the name, the magnometer.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Basically, like the screening for, weapons or things like that. You're not going to have to go through a metal detector and empty your pockets, go through and then refill your pockets. This is going to be basically you're walking through this machine with everything still in your pocket, and they'll be able to detect whether you have a gun, a knife, or some of the things that they check for.
Right.
So I think getting in the stadium is going to be a much more pleasant experience. And to be honest, a lot of people, the first thing that people complain about getting to sporting events or stadiums is, oh, the line to get in was too long and things like that. I think that's going to definitely alleviate a lot of those concerns. And then just the function of the app. The app isn't. We don't have the app yet, so we don't exactly know how it's going to look. But some of the things he said you will be able to do on the app, the Snapdragon Stadium app, ordering things, watching replays. I think he mentioned at one point. I think that's going to be really cool. Yeah, a lot of good nuggets that he had.
Right. And I think I also thought it was important that we were able to hit on with the Aztec ticket office that they're aware that some people may be a little bit intimidated by the idea of a ticketless stadium, and that they have a process in place to be able to just try to help people and be able to get that done. I thought it was interesting also that there are a number of people who want to commemorate the 100th season, and they're asking for physical tickets that way. But they were very, very clear in kind of follow-ups and stuff. Oakview was that people do have that nervousness of what that'll be like because it is different, but that people are able to adapt pretty easily. For the Aztec fans who did go up to Carson, obviously they'd be used to it from there. But I think that the way he used Adam Millar used air quotes to talk about the video board at Qualcomm, as if you couldn't even call it a video board compared to what these are, and so I think it's interesting. It's just an interesting part of it because obviously all the Charger games back in the day, a lot of them were at 1:00, and it's absolutely true. If the sun was shining on that thing, I mean, that was always the funniest part where they would like pause the game and they would put the replay up on the thing and everyone's standing there like, well, you can't see it, or half the stadium, they could see it maybe. And you kind of like had to wait for the reaction of the people who had like the right vantage point. And if they cheered, then you're like, okay, it's going to be over, go in the Chargers' favor or whatever. I've seen the pictures. They're during the day. And I don't know if it's just the camera, but Adam, wanted to let us know that, no, these are crystal clear, even in the brightest of the day, which of course, the Aztecs are playing Arizona 12:30, so they'll be used in right away. And I think the technology is going to be something that makes the experience better because this stadium, more than any other one, primarily because it's new, is kind of the architecture, the stadium world's response to all of the great viewing experience that you can have at home, right? I mean, the idea is, why would you spend money to go to a stadium when you can watch it on a 7,000-inch television at your house where everything's comfortable and you can do all that, and you could pause TV and you could do all the things that you want to do in the comfort of your own living room with your friends over, have a tailgate kind of at your house. Why would you want to do that? And I think the response is Snapdragon Stadium. That they are designing it in such a way that you're going to want to be there, from, the variety of food and beer options from that you're not going to be able to get in your living room, from the opportunity to still see the same replays that everyone else is seeing at home, from the opportunities to order food, order merchandise, and have it be brought to you and not have to stand in long lines, to the way that they're going to be able to, as time goes on, to kind of like change the experience to make sure that lines are, where they need to be and things like that. I think that that's really one of the stories to follow as Snapdragon opens, is how successful were stadiums in saying, hey, come and show up. Because right now, it's fan loyalty. Fan loyalty is kind of like still the main hook. Come create a loud environment. But as far as saying, you're going to have a better time watching the game at the stadium, I think that's what Snapdragon was designed to do.
Just going back real quickly to the digital tickets thing. I mean, I think anyone that's been to a sporting event or a concert since COVID has been in this digital world. Like, I think pretty much everything. Padres are all digital. Even San Diego State basketball was digital last year. So, I mean, I think that's something that people have to be used to by now. I understand that there are some people that don't have a smartphone or don't necessarily have the interest in having digital tickets, but I am surprised that most of the official announcements and articles and releases have all talked about it being solely digital. I think it's you reached out to the ticket office and got them to say, hey, for those that may not have a smartphone, we'll have an option for them. But I'm surprised that hasn't been out there more from some of the official releases and things like that, because I think I still see that question pop up like 10 times via social media a day. People asking, "Oh, can I still get a paper ticket, or is it going to?" So I think that's one thing maybe San Diego State could have done better or can do better over the next couple of weeks is get that word out there.
Right, and I think everyone is I think everyone is a little bit from my, and this is just my take on it from those conversations. I don't think that I think they want to go full digital, and I think some of this is a response to enough season ticket holders, enough alumni saying, hey, is there another option? Enough people going and saying, you realize this is the 100th season and you've had tickets for like 98 of them. Can we please have some?
Yeah.
And so I think a little bit of it is a response. And I think that over the next week, they're going to be reaching out to people who have made that known. And then they're going to present the option, because the hard part is, if you're going to print out 15,000 tickets, right? Each season ticket now costs like $5. But if you're going to print out 100 people who want this, or 200, the price becomes prohibitive at that point. And I mean, $25 a seat, depending on where you're sitting, that's not, depending on how many seats you have, I should say, that's not, necessarily a small amount of money to be able to do it. But at the same time, 25 divided by 7, it's not too bad of a way to be able to get that ticket if that's something that you need. And I think too, the people at my experience with the people who worked at San Diego State have always found a way to just kind of make sure everything's okay. I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not an official way of they can't have like an official rule for every single situation that could possibly come up. But my experience over the years is that they've done their best to make sure that everybody has like a solution that works for them. And, they definitely want to push people to come for assistance on game day if they need it. And then, they'll be able to get them in. So I think that they understand that the issue is there. And I think they're doing what they can to address the issue, while also trying to make sure that everyone knows that this is what is the best way for it to going forward is to be completely digital.
Yeah, for sure. We want to thank Adam for definitely coming on the podcast and giving us his thoughts and his highlighting some of the features. So definitely a cool person to have him on the podcast. Definitely have him, on maybe later in the season. And he can kind of tell us, things that have worked, things that didn't work, and maybe things that are going to change, for future seasons. So we'll talk. We'll hope to have him back on at some point. Moving on, we're recording this on Saturday night. This episode is going to come out Sunday morning, so not too far afterwards. But both of us attended practice today, San Diego State football practice, with a scrimmage, the first scrimmage of fall camp. Wanted to give our listeners some tidbits and our thoughts, preliminary thoughts, just a couple hours afterwards. So what were your initial thoughts about how practice went or scrimmage went?
I thought that the energy was really good. I think in the very first article that I wrote, I wrote that, they were more workmanlike than they had been at the beginning of spring or at the fall camp last year. And there was none of that today. I mean, today everybody was hooting and hollering and talking, and you could tell that they were ready for this competition. I thought just in general that energy was probably the best part of it. We talked to Brady Hoke afterwards, And as they did at last year, this is one of the biggest scrimmages for players who are further down on the depth chart. A person like Darian Dalton, 97, got some early time against the first team offense, came up with a third down stop where he plugged the run and forced a punt. And I think that, that might be, unless injury happens, like his most significant plays this year, potentially, right? Unless he plays himself into a more significant role, and certainly helped himself, towards that goal. And so I think that by having that energy, it produced as game-like of an environment as possible for those young guys. And I think you're going to see a lot of that on the scrimmage, a week from today.
It was definitely fun to see them with pads on and going full hitting. I mean, obviously the quarterbacks weren't getting tackled, but everything else was a full go game situation hitting. There was a lot of hooting and hollering, a lot of talking between the offenses and defenses. We didn't see anything that necessarily crossed the line, so that was good too. I think for me, the biggest takeaway was it finally clicked to me, and maybe it shouldn't have taken this long, that Braxton Burmeister this is his team.
Yeah.
And now I see why the coaching staff went and got him, why he became the starting quarterback so quickly into spring camp. It was pretty evident that there's a big separation between Burmeister and the other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I felt really good about the offense in general, but I can see why the coaches loved Burmeister from day one. I think there's a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity there for the offense with him at the helm. So that was my biggest takeaway is, okay, I get it now. This is why he's here. This is why the coaches wanted him and love him. So that it was clear to me that he was the best quarterback on the field.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll even take it another level. I mean, he was the best player on the field, right? I mean, he was what Jeff Hecklinski has talked to us about that he wants from the position as the most dangerous player on the field. I mean, some of the plays that he made, it's hard to know if he can get hit and stuff like that, what changes and stuff like that. But he brings a confidence to it, to the position. He brings an expectation that something good is going to happen. And then of course he brings skill. I mean, he's good. There was we should have this discussion about probably for like the next little piece of this, but talk about the younger quarterbacks. But the younger quarterbacks, they all let me back up. For the way the scrimmage worked, there was like only one or two long drives and the rest of it was situational. So they did red zone and they did, fourth down plays where the offense has 4th and 3 and they have to get a first down. So it was a lot of situational red zone things inside the 10, those kind of 2-point conversion plays. And there were, the younger quarterbacks, Haskell and Amavai, those were the number 2 and number 3 quarterbacks today. They each threw interceptions down near the goal line where they were trying to do too much and they were fitting a ball in that they had no business throwing. And there was a play where Burmeister looked like he did the same thing. Like he threw a pass that where Terrell Shavers was blanketed by Noah Abinger, and he just wasn't open when he threw the ball. I mean, you had enough time, they were at the end zone where we were standing in and he threw the pass and you have enough time to look over and see that he's completely covered. But Burmeister completely threw him open. And it was the timing of it was honestly NFL level. I mean, those are two guys who hope to be NFL level and they flash NFL potential in that play where Avinger did everything right, but the throw and the separation at the right moment and the catch for a touchdown was just what, you see when San Diego State played Fresno State last year and Haener was able to just beat them and be a little bit better and a step quicker and stuff. and a step quicker in getting the ball there. So a moment quicker that made the Aztecs a step slow, I should have said. And so I was just going to, they're just skillful. All of that rambling just to say that I thought that Burmeister also threw the ball really well, and, he is next level. So I guess another question then would be, kind of piggybacking with that, is what did you see from the young QBs, and is there concern, or where are they at, you feel like, in the backup role?
I wouldn't necessarily say concern. I think I would be concerned if Braxton Burmeister was injured and could not play.
No, that's concern about the backup.
Right. Yeah, because I think there is a big gap at this point, at least from what I saw today, between Burmeister and the other three guys. And obviously Haskell is number two. I think what the offense wants to do and wants to become, for this season anyway, it has to be Braxton Burmeister at the controls. And I think if one of the other three quarterbacks has to come in, then I think you're going to see the offensive coordinator, Heklinski, dial back and become more of maybe go back to how they were, early last season.
Yeah.
Very conservative. And that's not what, Aztec fans want to hear or want to see, obviously. But they all did nice things. I mean, you could tell Will's athleticism and speed was evident today. Now he's going up against second, third string defenders. So it's hard to say, okay, that play, he would have made the same play against the first string defense, right? Because we don't know. We didn't see that today anyway. And, Liu had some good moments too, but, there at times the quarterbacks and receivers are a little bit off today. Across the board. In the spring game, we saw a lot of receivers make a lot of plays. We didn't see that as much today as we did in the spring game. Breon Penny had a couple nice catches, but he also dropped a couple, passes that he should have caught. You talked about Shaver's nice play, but I don't remember him having another catch the rest of scrimmage. And he didn't play, he didn't play a ton. Jesse Matthews didn't have a ton. He had a couple catches, but they were small. Obviously, it was more for the younger guys to really get a lot of experience. But you could tell the receivers and quarterbacks were not well synced up today. But that'll happen as well. They made enough plays to do that. And to go back and answer your question, as backups, I'm not concerned considering they're still freshmen. But if one of those three had to be the starter this year, I think they would be more concerned, just based on the level of experience that they don't have, that Burmeister does.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think that one of the unfortunate, depends where you're at, just the unfortunate, from my perspective, aspects of the media business is you do have to go after views. I mean, that's a real thing. Will Haskell was on SportsCenter. He's a giant story. And so he's been written about in the local media, and he's been talked about on radio, and we've talked about him, and we've written about him, all of us, because that's what everybody wants to hear about, because he's, on SportsCenter. I mean, this is the guy who's on SportsCenter who's not playing for Alabama. He's playing for San Diego State, and everybody wants to see and hear about him. And so I think there's been maybe a little bit, maybe just they kind of inflated how good he actually is right now. Without that sort of conversation and that buzz around him, as a redshirt freshman, he is really good. I mean, as a redshirt freshman, his talent is something else. I mean, when he throws the ball, he throws an amazing deep ball. And his ability to get it where his receiver can make a play on it is really, really good. You mentioned his running and his athleticism. I think that's obviously there. His just, he sometimes is more sometimes I feel like he kind of pushes the ball instead of throwing it, and sometimes his mechanics get where they need to be as a young guy would. But man, I think there's signs of improvement. I mean, when they were doing 2-point conversions, he for the only time but it was at the very end of practice, the rush came, and instead of trying to roll out and run around outside of him, he very adeptly stepped up into the pocket and climbed the ladder into the pocket, and then the crossing route came open and they were able to, and he threw a nice little pass to a wide open player that if he had tried to scramble outside would not have been there. And so that kind of growth, I think, is very encouraging. And in truthfulness, this is honestly where I thought he would be. And that's why that was before he decided he was going to play safety. That's why I was like, well, if there's a guy who's going to be able to compete with Burmeister, it's Jalen Maiden, because he's the older guy. He's the guy who's done this. He's the guy who, was there last year. And it has as much to do with the fact that like they love competition and they didn't bring in anybody to compete with Burmeister. And it didn't seem to me that there was people on the roster that could legitimately compete with him. And, that's where that whole thing with Maiden was born in my mind was they love competition. This has got to be the guy. There's a junior guy who can do that. And I think maybe they even expected him to be that guy before he decided to change positions. But that said, I definitely do think that if they get into a position where they have to play one of those guys, whether it's Haskell, and, as we saw last year in the movement of the depth chart, it might be Haskell early, but it could be Amavai later as he gets more seasoning, or Crum as he gets more seasoning. I do think the offense changes, and I definitely could see more of a, ground attack, pounded and try to take advantage of the fact that catching some people in some play action and things like that, where Haskell could really, shine. But I think in general, the position has never been in a better place. It's just they're not ready to be what a guy in his 6th year of college is, and that shouldn't be expected from freshmen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another takeaway from scrimmage was the offensive line. We had heard from a few different people, kind of sources, if you want to say, earlier in midweek about Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon being moved to left tackle and Josh Simmons running with the first unit at right tackle, and that's what we saw at the start of the scrimmage. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Harrison kind of rotated in and played some right tackle with the first unit as well, but he played, I think, predominantly second unit.
That's not how I saw it. I saw it personally. I thought it was split pretty fairly evenly. But Simmons absolutely went first.
Started first, yeah.
Absolutely, with that, there's no question about that.
And I think that, post spring depth chart, Simmons was, I believe, third right tackle, and for him to make that jump from the end of spring to now, I think is impressive. And we've heard Coach mention him during his press conference last week. We asked Coach Holt if that's a permanent move, moving BCD to left tackle. He didn't want to commit to it as a permanent move. I think he gave the coach answer of, we're just trying to see which 5 guys work the best together, and they're all athletic. But to me, I don't think you make that move unless you're planning on having BCD be the left tackle. I don't think you're going to move him to left tackle for a week of practice and a scrimmage and then suddenly move him back, 10 days before the start of the regular season. So I can see why Coach said that, obviously, but to me, that seems like a move it's for the long haul.
I don't necessarily disagree with that take. I will play devil's advocate a little bit, and I it's not just to be the opposite side, but also because as I play with this in my head, I'm not sure either. One of the things that I find very impressive with the coaching staff, primarily because I think it's a rare skill, is they talk about the process, right? And I think they were quoting that, I think, from Nick Saban or something like that. I think Coach Hoke said when we talked to him a few weeks ago, and I think they mean it. When I asked them and I said, hey, where is the at the very beginning of spring, I said, what are you going to do to help the offensive line? And he's like, well, we got to evaluate them. like we can't know what it is that we need to do unless we're going to evaluate them. Right. And so I think the idea that they were adamant when we talked to Coach Goff, that BCD moving him to left tackle would open up another problem, that they didn't want to move him to left tackle. And so the idea that they're having to rotate this many players this late into camp, to me is an indication that when they did their evaluation, they're finding out that they're not happy, which goes back to the question of, were they just unsuccessful at getting somebody else in the transfer portal? Right. Because I mean, if they were able to get an older guy or something like that, maybe you wouldn't be having this. And so then saying all of that, I asked Coach Hoke when they would start turning their attention to Arizona. And it's the typical answer you always hear: 10 days before they're going to be able to do that, which makes that about 10 days from now when they would be turning their attention to Arizona. And so I think they're going to have the process. They're going to go and they're going to look through the tape and they're going to see, by moving BCD from right tackle where he was a strength to left tackle, does he go from being good to being okay? You know what I mean? Or did they have what it looked like, which is that their right side was really solid with Ross Ulugulu Masuli, right? And now they can and BCD on the right hand side, and now they move him to the left, and now you have a little bit more balance of like that veteran play and that strength. I don't know, but I think that Coach is really going to allow the process to play out. And I think that this is part of it. And so I don't necessarily know that they would be so adamant, not do it the first 2 days of practice, jump onto it on, the Wednesday. And now here we are a week later and it's still there in this is the first real like game type action where you would see whether or not it worked or not. So I just find that idea of working the process and allowing these players to compete and not forming a decision and waiting as long as possible before having to like actually say what you're going to do, I think that's real. On the other hand, Mike Goff said he wanted to do it as quickly as possible. Xavier Leonard, who seemed to have elevated himself in the eyes of the coaching staff based off of the offseason at the beginning of camp, he had a rough game. He had a rough game today where he was pulled out a couple of times for mistakes that he made. And so I think that's the issue is where are they going to be the strongest? Where are they going to be able to do it? But all that said, the offense played maybe if you're being generous, they played the full twos on the defensive line, but probably more likely the 3s and 4s on the defensive line. And they did not dominate. And you would not have known, and they didn't have Chance Bell, which he didn't play very much. He played a little bit. He didn't play a bunch. And he was clearly better than all the other backs. They didn't dominate against the backup defensive line. And I think that aside from maybe when they play, Idaho State, maybe. I don't want to, nothing against the Bengals, but that might be the only time where their backup defensive line is as good as the starters on any other team. That they need to be better, and they weren't today. And then that goes back to the QB play. When we asked Coach about that, he said, we kind of got to get them blocked up front before we can give a full evaluation of where they're at. And I think that's true. That's still the big question is where's the line? Because as good as everything else around them could potentially be, Burmeister isn't the biggest guy. And he does have a history of being hurt. If the line is unable to protect him, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter that he's a lot better. I mean, he's going to be able to do some things anyway, but it's just they're not going to have the season that they need to and that they want to and really make that push for the conference title if their line does not get a lot better than what we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your comment about protecting Burmeister, left tackle is his blind side. That's right. Why left tackles get paid $15 to $20 million a year in the NFL, and none of the other linemen get paid more than 10 some of them get paid a little bit more, and I think the product of that is the left tackles that were vying for left tackle, meaning Harrison, Leonard, maybe even Simmons, they felt like they did not trust them potentially to be that starting left tackle. And is a 1-year experienced starter BCD at right tackle going to be better than a first-time left tackle? Absolutely. But is that BCD at left tackle still going to be better than the other 3 guys that for their first game experience at left tackle? I think the answer is yes, right? And I think that's what the coaches are evaluating. But I think they've already kind of made that.
And I would say too, like, and I think, I mean, with that, that's again, where it's you're always kind of reading tea leaves, right? And so, like, maybe when they were saying that they didn't want to move BCD to left tackle, they were saying that at the beginning of camp, and they were saying that as a guy who, spring camp, beg your pardon. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Spring camp. And they were saying at the beginning of spring camp, and they were saying it as a guy who, what did they say about him? He had the biggest improvement, Heklinski said, of any player since he got on campus. And so maybe they were worried about him regressing. They were worried about him not being that guy. And so you could say the tea leaves are saying that over the summer, he's continued to be the guy that he showed why he earned the starting job. And when they started camp, he turned out to be that guy. And so now they can say, okay, now he's more in that mold of Zach Thomas, who is able to make that move over because we trust him now. And they may not have trusted him, but now with another spring, another summer, I think you could very easily read it that way as well.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Let's talk defense before we close this out. You mentioned the defensive line. We didn't see Justice Tavai at all. Keyshawn Banks, Jonah Tavai, I think played just the first drive.
Right.
6 snaps or something like that. No Patrick McMorris. We asked Coach about that, and he said he's fine. We don't need to see him out there. We know what he does, what he can do.
Right.
And then Kyron White was also not out there. We found out from Coach afterwards he fractured a finger on his right hand, expecting to put a brace or a cast on it and still be able to play, but he obviously sat out today. So a lot of those, that's almost 5 of the 11. Well, Kyron White isn't a starter, but he's kind of that main backup. There's a lot of starting quality players not there. What did you think of how the defense did?
Yeah, add Michael Shawcroft to that list of guys who played early and didn't started and didn't play a ton. I thought it was important that both McDonald brothers, since they are playing new positions, they both played the whole scrimmage. So I thought that was important. Defensively, it's what we've said. I mean, the spring game, kind of our biggest takeaway from the spring game was wherever Patrick McMorris was, that defense was really good and dominant, and it was Aztec defense. And then where it wasn't, there was space and people could pass the ball and they could do those things. So any defense that doesn't have any Aztec 3-3-5 Aztec defense that does not have that Aztec safety playing at a high level historically has not been good. And there hasn't been many seasons where they haven't been able to find who that player is. I think it was very helpful for down the road because some of the biggest plays from today happened from players who played that Aztec position behind Kyron White and behind Patrick McMorris. Jatavius McGee, he made a play on a ball. They were on one of their goal line drives. Burmeister was in, they spread in 5 wide with Chance Bell as the outside receiver on Burmeister's left-hand side, 2 receivers, Bell and another receiver on the left, and then 2 receivers on the right, and a little bit spread out was Mark Redmond. And Mark Redmond ran a little bit of a dig route, and the whole idea was for him to turn his body and put his body between him and McGee and kind of box him out, and there's where the pass were going to be. And it was delivered on time.
Antonio Gates special.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, we turned to each other and we were like, oh, Redmond's got to make that play. But there's 2 sides to that. And that's the fact that that McGee was able to know what they were doing, get his hand in, and legitimately knock it away. And so it was both, I think, from an offensive standpoint, and we're talking about defense, it was exciting to see that kind of concepts that was there. But then that McGee was able to make that play. And I thought that was really good. And then he also had another pass breakup. He played downhill, which is important, I think, for an Aztec position, because, you know, they do clean up a lot. So he's just big and strong and fast. And you know, I have no idea how each player's different. So when Kyron White has that cast on his hand, you know, it didn't seem to bother Dallas Branch a whole bunch when he wore a similar thing last year. Michael Shawcroft, it didn't seem to bother him when he had it. So if he can play with it, you know, I'm assuming he would still be at that Aztec position. But if not, then it's McGee who would now kind of go into that spot. And I thought he showed really, really well. And then the other one, you know, Jalen Maiden. I worked for a few years with Darren Carrington, former safety of the Chargers, and he talked about how, you know, when you play with a big hitting player, you just make sure you kind of follow them and you're behind them, because you know something as good is going to happen. That instinct of a safety to be able to kind of follow the ricochet. Jalen Maiden has had his fair share of interceptions that have been off of deflections, and to have that instinct to be there at a position where he just moved to, I think, is pretty special. And so, you know, it was not a pass that should have been thrown, but it was thrown. Eric Butler, who was something we should definitely talk about, hit the ball up, and Maiden went and got it and goes down the field. And Haskell's the one who threw it. The refs blew the whistle, and so Haskell stopped. And instead of trying to chase down Maiden, and so
Maiden kept going all the way.
Right. Maiden wouldn't stop, and so this is where I want you to pick it up. So Maiden, he doesn't stop. He's like, yeah, right. I am taking this to the house all the way. This is going to be a pick six, and Haskell doesn't try to chase him down because the refs were trying to be like, okay, come back, that kind of thing. So what happens?
So we're standing behind the end zone where Maiden just picked it off, like 10 feet away from us, and starts running the opposite end of us. As he's going down the sideline and the whistles is blown, Haskell stops. Another guy in a green jersey, and the green jersey of the quarterbacks, from the sideline pops into play and starts running after Maiden. And it happens to be Braxton Burmeister, to try to get to Maiden. And I think he got to Maiden before Maiden got in the end zone. It was hard to see because we're on the opposite end. But it was really funny and exciting to kind of see the starting quarterback, who's not even in the play, just refusing to let, you know, a guy score a touchdown, even though the whistle had blown and it was a scrimmage. He was definitely fired up to make sure that he got to Maiden A, and then yelling on the sideline back towards where we were standing and where some of the SDSU operations guys were standing, about how he's got 4.3 speed.
He showed it. He was fast.
So it was pretty cool. It was cool. It was definitely the highlight of the scrimmage as an overall kind of like exciting play, even though, you know, the whistle had blown for most of the end of that.
Yeah, and I thought Maiden actually did a pretty good job with being able to go back to his QB days, because when Burmeister came for the strip, Maiden kind of tucked it, and you know, like he's used to having the ball in his hands. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think he was going to catch him.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Like he had a, you know, coach at the end. He did say that Moose pulled up a little bit, he said. So maybe, you know, he started slowing down a little bit as he approached the other side, but the gap between Burmeister, who he told us after practice, he was sitting down. He went from a complete sit down to a sprint and was able to catch a DB who was flying down the field. Definitely showed that 4.3 speed. But let's talk about the young guys, man. Talk about the young guys and who, true freshmen or redshirt freshmen, people who, you know, got an opportunity to play here that caught your eye and you think have a bright future.
Dom Oliver.
Yeah.
There's nothing more exciting on a defense than having that outside linebacker flying off the edge and going after the quarterback. I don't know if San Diego State has necessarily had someone like that in a while that can do that out from the outside linebacker spot with that speed and that edge ability. And Dom Oliver has flashed that in his high school tape that I interviewed him, wrote an article, and I know you watched some tape on him. He definitely showed it. He's also the guy that told me and told the coaches, I want to break the sack record at San Diego State. I mean, he's got his mind set. I wouldn't put it past him based on his ability. He's got to get on the field. Obviously, to get sacks, you got to play. And he's a redshirt freshman, so he's still got plenty of years. But Coach Maddox even told us about how he can be in a lot of pass rushing down and distance situations, third and longs, things like that. But he made 2 plays off the edge today that were pretty spectacular. So that was exciting. And the other guy was Eric Butler, a true freshman.
Let's stand Dom Oliver. Let's stand Dom Oliver first. I thought, first of all, I saw what you saw, and I had also heard multiple people do the same thing where they're saying, hey, maybe Dominic Oliver could put his hand in the ground and be a defensive lineman in passing downs.
Maddox told us that.
Yeah, we got to get this guy on the field during passing downs because that's what he does like exceptionally well. I thought that he showed that the play that I'm thinking about, they had what looked like either a read option or a run pass option where the quarterback needs to make a decision on Oliver on what they're going to be able to do. And Oliver, he timed the snap, which the timing of it is half of it. And he comes in and just completely blows up the play. I mean, I think the QB gave the handoff only because it's either him, in a regular game, he's going to get crushed if he doesn't. But I mean, he flew off the ball. But I think that more often than not, when I was watching him, the coaches dropped him back in coverage. And I think that it just, they again, he's one of those players. I think they know that he's got that burst. They know that he's fast. They know that he can provide that suddenness that, you can build off of, right? Like everyone's already going to know because of our scouting reports that whenever he gets into the field, they're going to know that 30 is fast. And so those linemen, those better be able to run with them. He's got that, but I thought they did a really good job of getting him to work. But tell me about Eric Butler.
Out of the 3 true freshman safeties, I kind of looked at Josh Hunter maybe being ahead of the other 2, Max Garrison and Eric Butler. But we saw Eric Butler get in first with some of the second unit and then predominantly third unit. He played well. I mean, he covered well. He played man and zone well. He came into the run game. He got his hands. You mentioned the pick by Maiden. Eric Butler tipped that ball directly into Maiden's hands. So he was all over the place. Josh Hunter had some nice tackles as well. But you could tell that Eric Butler has the length and the size. He's 6'1". Right. Whereas Hunter is 5'9", and we've chronicled Josh Hunter as possibly the best defensive player on the best high school team in the country, and potentially if he was, I think even Josh said that in his podcast interview, if he was 3 or 4 inches taller, he is an actual 5-star.
An actual,
yeah. When I say actual, I mean
I got you.
Listen.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay. But yeah, he's 5'9", and and then you got Eric Butler, who's 6'1", and if he's playing coverage against bigger receivers, so he was impressive. Chris Johnson, the corner, he also I think he was mainly running with the third unit. But he made some nice plays, and he had an interception off of was it Omavai?
It was,
in the end zone at the 1 yard line, I believe.
Right. But you know what? What I liked about that interception is he was an athlete on that play. It wasn't. He went up and got that ball. He didn't wait for it. He went up and made a legit Division I attack of the football. It was a bad pass. But in high school, it probably isn't a bad pass because you don't have Chris Johnson who's going to go up there and just show how bad of a pass that was, So yeah, I thought the same thing. And it for better or for worse, it's just what it is. Football is a game of physicality. It's a game of size, and Eric Butler stands out. I mean, he just in the exact same way that CJ Baskerville stood out, that you were just like, oh, okay, this guy's got some good size to him. Like, this guy is physically ready to be on the field. But, I thought to your point, though, that there was enough opportunity for Josh Hunter today to show that he can tackle, which his head coach called him the best open field tackler that they had, even though he's like the smallest guy. And so I thought that he was able to do that. I thought that he showed with 3 really good tackles. I thought he showed good range, but it's a deep position, and Eric Butler was able to run ahead of some guys who've been in the program a little bit longer, or with those guys, because Kyron Wright wasn't there. It gave him that opportunity to be able to do that. But I thought they showed really well. I thought the line, we talked about Xavier Leonard getting pulled out, but they brought in the JUCO guy, who obviously isn't a freshman because he played 1 year already of junior college ball. But he's
Abdullah.
Yeah, Abdullah. I mean, the guy's what, 260? But he held his own. He held his own as a left tackle, and so if he can keep that same athleticism, that same grittiness that allows him at 260 to be able to play against these bigger guys. Ryan Henderson, that guy's a big kid. You see him get up on the line, you're like, oh wow, this guy's ready to go. So I thought that it was a great opportunity for those guys to be able to play. We already talked about Darian Dalton, and I thought he had some good moments as just getting that opportunity at the line, as they allowed a lot of their older guys, the wide draggers and even Garrett Fountain, they didn't play as much as you would see. You're going to expect them to play in the season. And I thought that, in general, they did really good. But last one, and I am blanking on his name, so you're going to have to help me. What on earth happened? There was a 75-yard punt today.
Was it 75?
From where he was standing.
Zachariah Ramirez.
Oh, Zachariah Ramirez. I'm telling you, he was standing on the goal line or close to the goal line. It's hard to know exactly where he was, but he was not very much into the field if he wasn't on the goal line. And he's on the complete opposite side from us. If you watch him run around with the players, he looks like he could be one of the coach's kids. Like he's just like the other, Browning, he has added muscle and he looks like an athletic, smaller guy. Reeser is just a big guy. He's a short, stocky, big guy. And Delgado is a junior now. And so he's been working out, and he doesn't just completely stick out. He kind of looks a little bit like, Darius Davis-Reyes or something like that, like one of those smaller wide receivers. But this kid, this punter, he looks like, why is he there? Like he really looks like a somebody's son. And this guy goes out and kicks the ball, and you can't even see him. Like from our perspective on the other end zone, you literally could not see him behind the line. And then the ball in the air he was right around the goal line, it went to the 25. Yeah. And you're just like, who was that? What was that about? And he only got one kick, but he was literally the second punter that they ran out there. Yeah. And he absolutely killed the ball. And so, I mean, that's exciting that kind of leg is in the program. And, it was just a crazy contrast because he absolutely crushed the ball. And that was if Burmeister had not decided to go from the sidelines and jump into the play and chase down Jalen Maiden and be able to, bridge the gap of 25 yards, and the enjoyment of just the team and everybody with that play, that punt would have been my highlight of the game. It was something to watch. It was like, whoa. It's like Matt Araiza, like shipped off his leg to him, and it was a shot.
Especially because I think right before that, Browning's punt was not very good. It was short,
right? It wasn't
and
horrible,
I think after it was like pretty close after that, where it was Ramirez's punt, and we just it was a big wow for sure.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, that's our recap from the scrimmage that Paul and I were both lucky enough to attend today. And moving forward, next Saturday is the official scrimmage, the soft opening of Snapdragon Stadium for those season ticket members that are able to go. It's going to be a great opportunity to kind of, as Adam said, stress test the stadium and the operations, but also a chance for fans to get a look at the team. We'll be there. Paul and I will be there providing you the coverage for the East Village Times, and a little teaser I threw out on Twitter today. We are hoping, if we can, figure out the technology aspect of it, to live stream a recap show potentially Saturday night. A live streamed episode of the SDSU Football Podcast. So look out for that. Hopefully, we can make it happen, and you guys will enjoy that. So keep an eye out for that. Any final words, Paul?
No, I mean, I'm excited about the potential of a live show, because you promised that we could get some interaction, so people could get on there with questions and their thoughts and that kind of thing. So that would be the part of it that I would most look forward to. But I thought today was a very good scrimmage for the Aztecs, and I guess the final thought would be that it was a good thing that they gave so many players an opportunity to rest, because that means they have so many players that they already trust and they already know, and that they feel comfortable with their position. And so I think that shows the depth and where this team is at, that they would use that one of their two scrimmages to be able to develop their younger players and not to get ready for Arizona. And so I think overall the Aztecs are, where they want to be. A lot of work to be done, but they're making progress.
Absolutely. We want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time. You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison.